Welcome to another episode of Inspirational People. I'm Jason Scott Montoya, and today I get the opportunity of introducing you to a new friend and fellow business consultant, Lauren Hisey. Lauren, say hello.
Hi, everyone.
In 2019, Lauren, a Lean Six Sigma specialist, transitioned from corporate America working with Nielson and AT&T before that to the entrepreneurial life as an independent coach and consultant, working with business owners to rapidly get from where they are to where they want to be. We recently got connected as part of her 2020 goal of 100 lunch meetings, a campaign similar to the one I ran at the conclusion of my marketing business in 2014 and launched as a freelancer. So thank you for joining us today, sharing your life, Lauren. Tell us about you and your story.
Sure. So, yeah, you did a lot with that great introduction. I started down my journey as a Lean Six Sigma and continuous improvement 13 years ago when I was at AT&T.
Okay. Now, I just to pause for a moment because
uh,
people have heard Six Sigma, and then you have Lean and regular, but for those that don't have any clue what that even is, other than just some really fancy thing that some people talk about, tell us what that is.
So basically, Lean and Six Sigma are two methodologies that are put together. So Lean was developed by Toyota. I want to say after
Like
it
Toyota, the
started.
car manufacturer, right?
Yes, the car manufacturer. It started probably at the end of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably when it all kind of really started. So it's just a way of improving your business with what's called a lean mindset. So looking for waste in a process, and but it's also not just trying to make the process very lean. That's one of the things is this as a Lean Sigma specialist, we wish Lean was the methodology was called something else because it's not all about just leaning out the business and getting rid of people. It's sort of
Okay.
it's more about empowering people and making the process as efficient as possible with the people, and at that time the manufacturing machines.
Mm.
And then you have Six Sigma that was developed back in the 80s at Motorola, and it was a way of taking defects out of the process.
Mm.
So think of I usually describe it as if you're a customer. Fast food might be a perfect example, and someone gives you your order wrong. They say if you ask for like no pickles and no ketchup, it comes with the ketchup and pickles anyways. That's considered I would it in Six Sigma as a defect. So
Okay.
we're looking to make sure that the process it has a lot of good quality in it.
Yeah.
So every time you get like your McDonald's order, it's right the
Yeah.
first time.
So on that note, I talk about in my book, The Jump for Small Business Owners, the idea of the chaos interface, which is what you're describing, versus the a couple other interfaces, the
Yeah.
transition. There's one where you translate the chaos into order, and then there's one where both sides are operating. But Chick-fil-A has an amazing
Yes.
process.
Yes.
And they do that, and so they come to mind as like a really good example of doing that right.
Yes, they do. And so, yeah, Chick-fil-A has a very big lean innovation, and
Mm-hmm.
they're especially within their headquarters here in Atlanta. They wanted to be the top fast food restaurant drive-through for the drive-through business, and that they really hit that
Yeah.
because of using those principles.
So are you like me when you go to a fast food restaurant that doesn't have it all together, that it bothers you?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I feel like sometimes I'm having to do part of their job just to make
Right.
sure my order is right.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm not a big fan of McDonald's. I'd rather go to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. All right. Well, I interrupted you, so tell us more about you and your story.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I started on this journey 13 years ago. I worked in the operations area or service delivery at that time. And then I moved into our quality management area. And then I moved into product development. So creating new products with the continuous mindset already there. So meaning that when the product was launched, it was already ready to go. So we didn't have
Mm.
to do work on the back end.
Yeah.
And then 5 years ago, I think it's about 5 years ago, Nielson came and acquired me from AT&T.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a
So it wasn't even on
interesting.
your radar.
It wasn't even on
Yeah.
radar, no. So I just got, and LinkedIn of all places too, right? So people say, "Oh, does LinkedIn really work?" It does, even if you're looking for a job or you're trying to run a business. They found me on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and so I went over there, and I was there until last year when I decided to go out on my own. And going out on my own wasn't something I just thought of, like I woke up one day and the next day I was doing it. It was a 2-year journey to get to that point where I
Yeah.
launched my business. So and here I am.
Yeah. That's exciting. So I guess I'm curious before I jump into my questions. Like it's an interesting dramatic shift to go from corporate America with sophistication and resources abound to entrepreneur, which is like, it's survival of just trying to, do the things that work and balance everything and make money and enjoy life. And it's a lot more complicated, it seems, but maybe not. Maybe it's just a different point of view. So tell me about that dichotomy or the difference between the two.
Yeah, gosh. When the first day that I did that, I was really scared when I woke up. It felt weird for the first time in probably good 18 years, 19 years
Okay.
that I didn't wake up to a boss.
Yeah.
I felt that a little bit in my transition from AT&T to Nielson because I had 2
Hmm.
weeks there where I first time in a very long time I didn't have to think about work. But then here
Okay.
I am, I only had to answer to myself. So I was like, well, what do I do?
Well, there's
It's
something
terrifying.
about the structure that we
Yeah,
have that's given to us that helps us, but when it's gone, we don't realize that isn't necessarily in us.
right, exactly. And being with that continuous improvement mindset and always having some type of structure, it felt a little weird at first. But now I'm starting to get into a groove. Even with everything that's going on in the world right now. But it's been a really awesome journey so far.
Yeah.
It's a lot of learning too, a lot of self-learning, a lot of business learning. I had to go out there and learn how to do sales and marketing,
Yeah.
and how to do digital marketing, and
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's been fun. But yeah, the structure. I think sometimes you miss the structure, but then the other thing that you tend to miss is having that team to fall back on when you do need help. So now, it was a little hard at first going out asking people who I just first met for help or
Yeah.
for advice. So that's become a lot easier.
Yeah. Now, so we actually you found out about me because I spoke at the Kettering freelancing SIG
Yeah.
a little while ago, and you're a part of that. So how did Kettering come into your journey and in terms of being a community and a resource for you to make this
Yeah.
jump?
So I joined Kettering a year ago, or a little over a year ago. My neighbor happens to be a longtime Kettering member, and my husband just was talking to her one day and said, "Yeah, Lauren just launched her business," and she said, "Well, she needs to join Kettering." So that's how I started out with Kettering. So my neighbor's not a active member; she's more of a alumni, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Kettering has been a great resource. It's been a great resource for references or referrals.
Yeah.
It's also been a great reference for learning and for networking, and then for meeting people like you too.
Yeah. That's cool. So tell us, so we're in the middle of like a cascading series of crisis. Started out as health and then an economic and now social. So I mean, you're the master, I guess, of bringing chaos or bringing order to chaos. So tell us how
Right.
we should look at this chaos and how we should be wise in terms of looking at it and interpreting it, and then how do we act from there?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So right before this all hit, I was working trying to get a really big prospective client that's international,
Yeah.
and of course that's been put on hold. So I just was like, well, what do I do? And so I was just kind of just I felt like I was just throwing a dart at the wall and seeing where it hit at that point, because I had already set up a sales process and a marketing process to kind of move through that, but then realized that I needed to move from doing everything in person, which I have done remote consulting, so that was nothing new, but also adding a layer of coaching into my business. But so what I did is, instead of just going out there and doing it really fast, I took the time to plan things out. I've also planned out my articles for the next 20 something weeks. But what I'm saying is taking that step back and for a minute and make sure that your goals are still what your goals were at the beginning of the year are still aligned with where you are right now, because things are different. And then figuring out the plan that you may have had set for yourself, is that still the right plan, or do you need to readjust that plan or come up with a new plan? So that's part of the whole thing with continuous mindset, is how do you keep moving forward, but sometimes you need to slow down first in order to move fast. So while it might seem like, oh my gosh, I'm going at a turtle's pace, once you get out of that turtle space and start planning, I think things start to move a lot faster, because you have some type of plan, you have momentum. But then also that's where you start to try new things, and if something doesn't work, even though it might take you a step or two back, you're still moving forward because
Yeah.
you're learning.
Yeah. Well, I
That's
guess,
go ahead.
yeah, well, I guess my question is for the people that are like, okay, that sounds good, having a plan, adapting, da da da. But how do we stay consistent and disciplined to follow that through, to be that turtle, that slow and steady turtle, after the emotions are gone and it's kind of, it's the middle of the marathon. It's not the beginning nor the end.
Right. How do you keep going? You
What's your
just
advice for
Well, I
us
have
to stay
advice for
consistent?
that. It is to stay consistent, and so there's days that I don't feel like getting up and doing things right. I just want to go hide underneath the sheets, because it's like you just don't know what's going on. What's going to happen to the next stage and the next right now. So how to stay consistent and how to keep going with my goals is I just remind myself that if I keep moving forward, because I have my goals I want to hit, but it's also just not always about me. Maybe if I could just get out there and help one person that day, maybe put a smile on one person's face. I
Yeah.
think that's what helps me, because that's part of my mission for myself, and part of my passion is to help people succeed. So that if I could just help one person, even with just one small bit of advice, even if it's not a client, then that helps me move
Mm.
forward.
And would you say that that transcends your work? Like that's part of your personal purpose, not just
Yeah.
your work?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's definitely, yeah. It's one of my passions. It's one of those where I just like to talk to people and help them out in any way I
Mhm.
can.
So where did that come from, and how did you get so clear
How did I
on
get?
the way that you said it? Because a lot of people, we talk about purpose and mission, but a lot of people don't necessarily decide that or figure it out.
You're gonna laugh. It really just came to me in the last few months. In the last 3 months,
Okay.
it was like it. So
But the
I
words
was
came to you, or the actual essence of it?
both.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was speaking with somebody earlier today about this as part of my lunches.
Yeah.
Is that sometimes that opportunity or sometimes those messaging is right in front of you and you don't see it. So once I got out of my own way, it really just dawned on me what it was. And it was a help through a Kettering member who was helping me with my own messaging. And then he said, you do realize what your mission is, right? I said, yeah. He goes, you just told me, like, that's where it is, like
Oh,
helping
okay.
people succeed.
Yeah.
Because he just helped me like talk through the words. And so it's just always been there. So that's when I went into Lean Six Sigma, it just was a natural
Yeah.
course for me, because I like the data analytics, but I also just I'm just try to be a very positive person and try to help people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
probably, it was always there. It
Yeah.
just
Well,
wasn't.
it's interesting that the turmoil of the world was part of that, because when I articulated my mission, and it's evolved over time, but I remember it was during a season of crisis, personal crisis and trouble,
Oh yeah.
and it's evolved. But my mission statement as it sits now is to share life,
Okay. Also, I love it.
and
Yeah.
it's a when I say that, it has a double meaning, in the sense that I think of share as to give and to receive,
Right.
and so it's a dual, an incoming and an outgoing. So,
Yeah.
but it's something that's simple, because I recently put together a logo for myself, and it's very simple. But there's something about like how much work it takes to create something so simple, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
So,
Very true.
so tell me on that note, you know, we're talking about purpose and mission, and what does it mean to live better? What does that mean to you?
To live better. So what it means to live better is to just enjoy to wake up each day thankful to have a new day to do something new and to help people. And so when I go to sleep at night, I was kind of reflect, okay, how was my day and what I was grateful for.
Yeah,
So that's how I usually do it. So it's something I've been practicing is more mindfulness, and because I'm always a very positive person. So
yeah,
with the way things are, I mean, I was a little negative a few months ago, just like it was negative, but scared.
yeah,
So instead of being scared, I realized we can't live being scared all the time. And once I got over that, I got back to being positive, and then I started being more back to the mindfulness and enjoying, just enjoying life and what
yeah,
it has to offer, even if it's just something small each day.
yeah. Are you familiar with, or have you ever taken StrengthsFinder before?
Yes, I
Is
have.
is posit is positivity in your top five?
Yes. Futuristic positivity, woo, and then I forget what the other ones, my other top two were.
Okay, I share futuristic with you then.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, strategic connectedness, ideation, and I don't remember the other
Oh,
stuff.
there was, isn't one of them, one of them is learning too, I think is one of mine is
Oh, okay.
learning.
I think,
So that,
or
so that,
something like that. Yeah. I
that
have
yeah, that's my other one.
context is one that I have, which is
Okay.
history. So I have futuristic and context, which is the history and
Ooh,
the past and the future. So that it's an
that,
interesting combination.
that is a very interesting
Yeah.
combination. Awesome.
When did you do that? Was that a while ago or recently?
I did Strength Finders 3 years ago when I was at Nielson.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it as a group, so it was
Okay.
interesting to see that.
Yeah, that's cool. So on the work side, what does it mean to work smarter?
What does it mean to work smarter? Uh, my biggest thing I always tell people is to take the time off when you need it. Don't
Mm,
work constantly because you're not going to get anywhere. And people think I'm crazy when I tell them that. But I said, you know what? At the end of the day, log off by a certain time every day and go
yeah.
spend time with your family and kids. That's what it
Well,
means to me to work smarter.
that's awesome, and I agree with you. But where did you learn that? Because I mean, I learned it growing up. Just as a Christian, we talk about Sabbath and honoring the
Right.
Sabbath and that idea. But although I lost my way for a while, but as a society, and particularly an American society, there is sort of this pursuit of more and this endless pursuit of that more. And you work every day and all the time. And so, where did you learn it?
I learned that from my husband.
Okay.
And quick story. So when my husband and I first got together, and even when we first got married, my husband was he's super smart, really good at what he does. And at that time, he was lead for a group at AT&T, but he was on call 365 days a year,
Oh
like
wow.
24 hours, to a point where we would go on vacation, and he was working on vacation. And or I would say, hey, put that laptop away, and I would find out, some of the emails that he was copied on, I was copied on too, and I catch him like, "How you are working when you should have been." So, long story short, like after the day after we got married, he got called. Like I'm
Hmm.
serious. We're sitting in our hotel room, and he got called. I'm like, are you serious? We just got married. So um, we just so from that moment on, he decided to take a different stance and realized, hey, you know what? Maybe we should just always take time off. So um, like we always take off on each other's birthdays. We always take off on our wedding anniversary. When our son was younger, we always took off on his birthday too, because you know
Okay.
what? No one should have to work on their birthdays.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Sounds good. Well, in Path of the Freelancer, I talk about building as a freelancer. We want to build a structure, a start. So
Yeah,
I have a start date, a start time, and an end time each day, and then I don't work on the weekends. Um, and so that's the default, right? And so there may be
right.
exceptions here or there, but that's it's these boundary. It's kind of this idea, I guess, the higher level value or ideas having and enforcing boundaries.
Yes.
And it's not an easy thing, and you kind of have to be willing to be the bad guy and not have all of us in all seasons of our life are willing to do that. But at some point you get to where
Right.
you and your husband were, and that's just what you got to do.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I try not to work on the weekends either unless I'm just doing a quick thing on social media. But yeah, sometimes that's the exception. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, or I'll take a break for a little while and then work again. But
Yeah.
I always try to take a lunch,
Yeah.
even if it's just 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's good. So,
Yeah.
but there is so much. I mean, a lot of people like look up to someone like Elon Musk, and he's very much a bad example in my mind of that
Yes, he
phenomenon.
is.
And people admire him for that, and I clash with him in that regard. But he is very innovative, and so it's a complicated mess we have.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So I guess on that note, and being an example to others, tell me what you think about mentoring and how that plays a role in your life and how it has played a role in your life
Yeah,
historically.
so I haven't mentored anyone in recently, but in the past I used to mentor, well, this is more in Florida. I would mentor as part of the University of South Florida's College of Business. They had a big mentoring program, and I was asked to mentor the female business students because I wish I always had someone to
Okay.
mentor me when I was their age.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's a big thing because it's not always a one-way street. I think mentorship is a two-way street. And
Okay.
so when you have someone that you're mentoring, you never know what perspective they're gonna provide to you too. So I think it's learning for both
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
And then of course I've had mentors too. I have been mentors too, and I've had a couple that we're still in contact, and they are now like I call them my friends.
Yeah.
And so if I ever have like business problems that I can't figure out here with me by myself or with my husband, then I give him a call and, hey, I just need another perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm finding too, meeting people along the way here with 100 lunches. I've gotten some really good feedback and some really good advice on that as well. So that's kind of like, didn't realize that some of that was going to turn into mentoring. So
Yeah.
it's been really
Well,
awesome.
yeah, it's interesting to say that because when I did my 100 lunch campaign, um, I didn't actually know what I was going to do next. So that I was shutting down my business, and I didn't know what was next, and I was just looking for help. Like give me
Right.
your advice, and so that's kind of the what I went into it. It was an exercise to learn and listen and get feedback, and that's very similar to what I experienced. So
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like just this morning, so how people always tell you to niche, niche, niche. Well, I
yeah,
knew that my niche I didn't want to go too narrow on my niche,
yeah.
but I just realized this morning where my sweet spot was when talking to someone. So,
Okay. And what
um,
tell us about it.
so yeah, it's just so I've always said I wanted to like helping small medium businesses. I mean, I would do help bigger corporations, but the sweet spot really isn't saying small medium businesses. It's really their revenue sizes that they are.
Mm,
And that's something that I learned last year, but I didn't really know how to equate that, I guess.
yeah,
Like, yeah, because small to medium business means so much, so many different things to different people.
yeah,
So that's what I was looking at. I'm like, oh yeah, it's not the number of people you have or how big your business is. It's more of you fit into this revenue range,
yeah,
and then I work with more service-based customers. That's always been my big thing. So it's like, oh yeah, there's my sweet
yeah,
spot.
yeah. That's cool. Well, and what I found is, well, two things. One is because I'm an independent consultant, the journey itself, um, it's helped me to get that clarity. So I didn't have as much clarity when I started. I have more clarity
Right.
now, and I imagine I'll get more later. And sort of that sweet spot is getting the target is getting smaller. And so that's one angle of it. And then the other is that because I'm just me and not a company, I actually have a lot more time to sort of figure that out. So I think if I have
Yeah.
a company with staff and there's a lot more on the line, I got to answer that question a lot quicker. But because of the journey I've been on as an independent, you know, I can sort of allow it to unfold organically. So
Yeah, definitely. That's how it's happened for me too. It just kind of happened organically, and you just found like, oh yes,
yeah.
that's where I've been. I didn't even realize that's what I was targeting. So
Mm,
it was like That's the aha, because I'm working on my website too. So just to
Yeah.
put in like who I serve and who I help, so that gives a little bit more clarity when people visit my website. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what would you tell to somebody that is about to make the jump that you made, and you're a little over, I guess, a little over a year into it.
yeah.
So they're where you were, and you've learned a lot in that first year. Like, what would you tell them now that could help them kind of get to where you are a lot quicker than where you are
Well, yeah, I love helping people with this one. So when you get your first client, don't stop the marketing and sales.
now?
And when you get your second client, don't do that either.
And
Because
is
then
there
what
a
happens?
third?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like with the first few, I just kind of like, oh well, I got the client. I don't need to worry about that right now. But because that sales cycle, and
Yeah.
especially right now, the sales cycle is a lot longer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so always stay top of mind, and don't be afraid to keep learning. Like be very
Hmm.
open to learning, and how that if you're not used to sales, don't be so scared of it. Try to think of it as a conversation and getting to know someone. That's why these lunches have been great for me, because it's given me a chance to really understand the conversations I need to really be having,
Yeah.
and who I need to be talking to. And it's starting to evolve, and it's starting to take a little bit of traction, because just if you think of sales as just as a conversation, it's not so scary.
Mm, yeah, when I started my marketing company in 2007, I kind of was very sales oriented in terms of, like, meeting people and cold calling and just trying to find people that would need what I offered. And there was sort of a way that people did sales in terms of, you sell them, or, you have to find them, and then you have to do the proposal, and there's sort of this informal process. And it just, there was something about it that didn't fit who I was. And I ended up coming across an author, Blair Enns, who wrote a book called Win Without Pitching. And he provided another way to look at it. And the way that the word he used to describe it is called a facilitator. And
Oh, there you
sales,
go.
we're a facilitator of the next step. And that next step may be with us or without us, but we are simply moving them forward. And
That's
so that really resonated with me and sounds similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's definitely that's the way I'm going. And then I think I talked with when we first talked to you, we were talking about the funnel and how it really works. And and that's where my other aha moment was. I talk about funnels all the time when I'm teaching Lean
Yeah.
Six Sigma, because yeah, you got all these problems, but you can't solve all the problems. You have to funnel it through, and that's kind of like the way sales works. You have all the
Yeah.
funnel at the top. You're talking to all these people, and then you just kind of move it down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So, so here's another question on that. You seem to be quite open about your learning and your progression and the journey you're on. But a lot of people, they kind of feel like they need to fake it till they make it, the opposite of what you're doing. So what's going on there? Why do you approach it that way? And why would you encourage perhaps someone with a little more ego to maybe be a little bit more open about it?
I learned, so one of the things I learned when I learned this at Nielsen. So when I went to Nielsen, I knew Lean Six Sigma very well, but I didn't know Nielsen's business very well. So with being in Lean Six Sigma, you're not necessarily going to know exact thing about a business. So I ask a lot of questions and just try to understand that. But one of the things I learned is if you're very open and transparent, I think it allows people to open up to you more. And that's where, I've been asking a lot of questions to people who have been in marketing and sales. And I just feel that if you do that, it allows people to open up to you more. And that's the other thing I'm learning is that people like to be personable. So that's who I am. So
Yeah,
maybe that's why I do it. I think the transparency is fine. And we're all good at we all in some way, shape, or form are trying to fake it till we make it, I guess, a little bit.
yeah,
But it's just yeah, just being open and being transparent. I think it's just a really good way of
yeah,
getting my message out there, and then maybe people can see that with I I'm really big on continuous improvement, and that's how I'm applying it to my business as
yeah,
well. So maybe if they see that, that's how they see, okay, it's working for her. It's
Yeah.
going to work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things when I had my marketing company, I went down that road too much where I wanted to present us better than we were. And one of the challenges that created was we attracted clients that had a very high expectation,
Got it.
and we repelled the ones that would have been more accommodating and flexible with us. And we actually needed them, and we didn't need those. And so we actually
Yeah.
attracted the wrong customer because we weren't actually ready enough to deal with these more sophisticated clients that had higher expectations. And so it backfired, is what I'm saying. um,
Yeah. But yeah, I've been trying to figure out like what's that middle ground. So yeah, I'm pretty transparent.
yeah.
And then there's some parts that I keep, put some parts that I'm like, okay, well, that's my personal life. We're not going to get into
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right?
All right, so let's talk about narratives and stories. How have, or what's some examples of some stories that have shaped you as a person?
Uh, 21 is this goes back to when I was at school getting my MBA. This is I always thought change was always a big thing, and that positivity toward that change. Because when I was going back to school, I was a systems engineer at AT&T, and I always knew that change was a big thing.
Yeah.
So who moved my cheese? When you asked me this, when you
Oh,
sent me
okay. Yeah.
the questions,
The
who my
book.
cheese just popped right in my head. I had to read that one of my business classes, but it
Mm,
was just something that said, if you don't adapt to change, things are going to always be negative. So if
yeah.
you adapt to the changes that happen to you, and you try to take a positive mindset with that change, then things aren't so bad.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to take this whole thing that's going on with us right now, or what they call the new normal, right? For right
Yeah.
now, just try to take it open, like an open heart, and be positive about it, because we have to do it in order for businesses to reopen. So let's see how it works
Yeah.
out.
Well, I guess
Yeah,
I'm
thinking.
curious how so in the Who Moved My Cheese, there's a principle there that some of our success may not be our own doing. It may be the
Right.
result of a circumstance that we don't control. So, and then when that changes, we don't know how to adapt because we didn't understand what was going on
Right.
underneath. So, that's very interesting because the crisis is sort of, in a way, I feel like it's leveled the playing field. It's sort of it's rebooted the computer in the sense that everyone's kind of at ground zero, and what are you going to do
Yeah.
with that? And the people that know how to create and share and distribute value, and the people that don't, they're going to have very different responses to this. I don't know. Is that what you're seeing, or do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I know people so I'm seeing a few things. Like I'm seeing some people that are slow to react.
Hmm.
Some people, and then you have the other side where people are really fast to react,
Yeah.
and want things to just get back to the way they were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the way I'm looking at it is that I'm kind of middle of the road.
Yeah.
So when things started to open back up a few weeks ago, like, all right, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I took that, okay, yeah, I'm super ready to go out and have dinner again, but I'm not going to go out today. I'm going to see how it goes.
Yeah. You don't want to be the
And
front line of that one.
exactly. So, yeah, and so what I'm seeing is that, like you said, people we're all on the same plane here, but I still don't think people see it that way.
Mm,
I think if we could just find, I don't know what the right way is, but if there's got to be a common way, or maybe we take things the way we are, like slowly. But then the other thing I look at it is, I've always, the people I'm talking to, especially people that may have had some negativity with this, is just to be kind to yourself and be kind to everyone else, because you never know what someone else's story is. For example, some people do want to wear a mask and some others don't. Well, that's fine. That's your choice. If you want to wear a mask, if you want to, if you don't wear one. But I always say, you can't judge someone what they're doing, because you never know what they're going through.
hmm.
Um, so
So
That's just
that,
usually,
yeah,
so say just be kind and just and just be patient and have some
yeah.
patience, even though it's a little hard right now.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing from you is that compassion is like an oil in an engine. It
Yeah.
keeps it from seizing up and blowing up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I want to I want to go back to, you made a comment. You said you got your MBA, and so I'm curious. Tell me about the difference between an MBA academically and an MBA in the real world of entrepreneurship.
Oh, so I was lucky with my MBA. I did have a class that we talked about having your own business and creating business plans, and understanding that. So I think that was great. But how do you apply that to your MBA to the real world? So yeah, I think it helps a lot in the business world, but I also think it helps from on owning your own business, because it kind of gave me a little bit of a background on the accounting and the finances and understanding how that part of the business works. You just have to take the things that you have and apply it. So in my program that I was in, we had to take a lot of real world things that we saw in our business, in our corporations, or if you were in a small business, and you had to all the stuff that we learned, we had to figure out how to apply that where we were at that point in time. And then like I said, there was one course that we did have to we had to come up with a new business and a business plan and figure out how to put the wheels into motion with that. And then I was also that's where I also learned about Lean Six Sigma too. So kind of what happened to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah, what happened to the real world. I mean, I know some programs are more geared toward corporations and some
Mm,
are more geared toward small business. So it just depends on where you are. So I think I was very lucky to be in a program that I can apply it to both areas because I learned so
mm,
much.
yeah, yeah, that's interesting. So I guess on that note, let's talk about systems. So I suppose you're a systems expert as a Lean Six Sigma person. So what are systems? How do they work? How do you use them in your work and life?
Yeah, from a continuous mindset, I'm always about planning and I always plan, and I do have a to-do list and it keeps growing more than I'm just crossing things off. But I always like to plan things out. So, and try to put goals toward my business. So I have my long-term goals, and then I try to use small-term goals. But as far as systems, like I just had this conversation this morning with someone, asking me what kind of software they use in their business, or what should they measure for. So systems, as far as I'm concerned with businesses, is looking at your revenue, looking at your cost, and then we're looking from a customer's and look everything from a customer's perspective, like how long is it taking. So let's think about Chick-fil-A. How
Yeah.
long does it take you to get your Chick-fil-A order, right? How long does it take? How long is it?
Mm,
How long? What's that customer's journey along that way? So measuring their what their cycle time is from their perspective, and if they got it right, and if everything's right the first time,
yeah.
and quality. Those are like the systems I look at, and then
Mm.
because I'm always looking at metrics, and then
Do you think of systems in outside of work and just living life, or does that part of your brain turn off?
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. The only thing the systems I like to use calendars at work, but I don't use calendars outside of work very well.
Yeah.
I rely on my husband for that. I just kind of turn it off.
Yeah.
Um, but outside of work, yes, I do have systems for everything. So I have a system for like how I'm going to clean
Okay. Yeah.
and how I'm going to, and I do have a system for like how I like to garden and do yard work. So I
Okay.
have a
Yeah.
system for that too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. So when does a system become a tyrant?
When it comes too rigid.
Okay. What does
So,
that mean, and how does
so
that look?
meaning that if it's too lean and too rigid, you can't pivot with the times. That's the
Okay.
best way to put it. So if and I see that with a lot of corporations today. Sometimes they are they're leaning out. That's the reason why I hate using the word Lean Six
Lean.
Sigma, right? Lean. When you think of leaning out your business, sometimes a business does need to lean out some of the layers and some of the things that they have going on. But then there's a point where you become too lean and too rigid with your systems, where if something changes, so for example, what is happening with COVID, a lot of businesses were not able to quickly pivot with what they're doing
Hmm.
to accommodate for the new way of working or the new way of doing things. So you probably there's a lot. I saw a lot of corporations kind of muddling through that because they didn't have those type of plans in place.
Mm.
So that's what I mean when it becomes too rigid.
Yeah.
So you need to be, yes, while you need to have the leanness there, it needs, but you need to be able to have the change, be able to change when you need to.
So how do you prevent, or can you prevent a system from becoming that way? Or is it more of it's going to become that way, so just be prepared to change it when it does?
Yeah, it's pretty much what happens. So if you start to think of a more of an agile mindset. So basically learning how, there's always going to be failure in a business at some point. So learning how to fail fast and take that learning and move forward. So that's one thing with the continuous improvement, or even in Lean Six Sigma, we try to put improvements into place, but we measure those improvements as we go to see if it's working. And if it's not working, because we're hypothesizing what's going to work. So if we see that it's not working, you're able to take one step back, reassess, and then move forward, like then replan
Yeah.
and then move forward. So that's where I think with continuous mindset, having that ability to say, okay, this didn't work.
Yeah.
Let's figure out real quickly what we need to do. Let's plan it out and then move forward.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the best way to grow, whether it's organizationally or as an individual, is what you're describing. The way I would phrase it is we look back, we reflect and learn, and we look forward and aspire, and then when we get to that forward point, then we look back again, and then we look forward, and it's just the oscillation between reflection and aspiration.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
that's really basically it. And so I when I work with clients now, I think I was trying to tell them, let's just look at it simply. It doesn't have to be something really massive. Let's set it out. Let's set the plan in motion. But that's what I always say, just take the time first, the plan, and then move forward.
Yeah. Is the when does a system um become, when is it, trying to think of how to say it. When does a system, when it's too weak, when it doesn't actually have enough power to accomplish what it needs to, or maybe it's under equipped or under resourced. Maybe it's a good system, but it's lacking the horsepower to make it work.
What do you do for that?
Yeah, or
Um,
well, why does that happen? I mean, I can think of a lot of times where I've developed systems prematurely, essentially. A really good
okay, great.
system,
Right.
but it's like I'm thinking like 3 years ahead, and it's like I need to deal with today, not something in three
Oh,
years.
that must be a sign. The second conversation I've had on this today.
Ah.
um, so yeah, it's so how do you get over that? So this is where what I do and what I try to help with, especially when I'm on the coaching aspect of my business. So take me for example. I have goals 5 and 10 years in advance of where I'd like my business to be. But that's great that I got there, but what's my goal for this month? And what's my goal for next month? What's my goal for the end of the year? So that's where I think continuous improvement comes in, is where we have these longer term goals, but then continuous improvement allows me to set up those short term goals or those short term wins to get me so I take small steps each day to get to those bigger goals. So think of it as I look at it this way. Think about it as if you're training for like a marathon or a half marathon and you've never run a day in your life. Like how are you gonna do that? It
Yeah.
just seems so overwhelming. But if you start to set up a plan, okay, I'm gonna run I'm gonna run this block and then I'm gonna run the second block, and each week I'm gonna progress a little bit further. That's kind of like what continuous improvement is, and how I deal with things. So when you have a really good system, sometimes that system is not ready to go yet just then. That's something that you're going to use in the future. So you need to develop your plan or your steps to get you through the next day, through the next
Yeah.
month.
Okay.
So that's how I kind of look at it, baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah. All the little things add up over a long period of
Yeah,
time.
it
Yeah.
does.
So when you think about um, systems in the sense of buy-in and adoption, what words of wisdom would you have in terms of, I mean, you can have a great system, but if you just push it on a bunch of people, they may resist just because you're pushing
Oh
it
yeah.
on them, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
even if it's
Yeah.
for their own benefit. So how do you handle that type of transition?
Yeah, so that's I am writing an article, I'm writing a series of articles
Okay.
on businesses using AI, artificial intelligence, or RPA, robotic process automation. Because that I think I've seen a lot of businesses trying to go there a lot faster than they should.
Yeah.
So
Is
how
it
do
a
you
shiny object? Is that what they're doing? What's
yeah, it's shiny. It's a nice shiny object, and it's got its positives, but
yeah.
you have to plan to get there first. So how do you get people to buy into something like that, and how do you get people on board with the change, right? So how you do that is when you're in the planning stages and you're trying to develop your plans and put your plans in motion. You need to have, and if you're on a business level, you need to have all levels involved in that. You don't necessarily, say if you're a 50-man company or you have 200,000 people, you can't have them all involved in the same thing in that, but you could have representatives from each of those areas involved in the planning and get those people to buy in. Because if you can get those people that are helping you to plan buy in, then they'll be and this is part of what they call like change management, right? You get those people to buy in, those people become your what's the word I'm looking for? They become the one
Advocates?
you're, yeah, thank you. They become your advocates. And so if you get them on board and you get them excited, that's how you get other people in the business excited for that change.
Yeah.
And so, and the other thing though is it too, it's not always, you can't speak about it, what it does for the business as a whole. You probably gonna have to talk about it too. What does it mean for that person
Mm.
or for that,
What's in it for
that
me,
team? It
not
is.
as well as what's the larger picture.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
for example, when I'm trying to do with RPA and artificial intelligence, a lot of people get scared of any type of new technology because they're afraid technology is going to take over their jobs. A lot of times, what we're trying to do with technology is take away this repetitive task. So,
Hmm.
instead of you doing that repetitive, boring task day in and day out, think about it as a time for that machine gets to do it. Then you get to concentrate really what your job is for, and it'll make your workday a lot easier and a lot more efficient. So and I always like to do this, at the end of the day, you can go home a lot sooner and spend time with your
Yeah,
family.
yeah. You don't have to work every day all the time.
Exactly. So that's just where one way I like to look at that is to have those advocates and to get and include those people in the training
Yeah,
and in the planning.
cool. Well, as we travel through life, it's hard, it's good, it's fun, it's sorrowful. What parting words of wisdom would you give us as we?
Always be open to change because you never know what door is going to open up for you. And so that's basically be open to all opportunities, and then and just try to stay positive. And if something seems negative,
Yeah,
something's happening for a reason.
yeah. So how do you filter those opportunities?
How do I
So
filter those
you
opportunities?
maybe opened all of them, but how do you filter so you know which ones
Um,
actually?
which ones are up for that are good for me?
Yeah,
I start having conversations with people like this and see how things kind of mesh out
yeah.
at first,
And
and then
discover
go.
that opportunity. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I do. Just discover, and then I have my own discovery process of things. So even in personal,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
it's like you know how like when you're planning for a trip. My husband and I we're very much like this week, or very much alike. Where this is, we'll plan our trip, we'll plan the hotels, but we don't necessarily play the day. Plan what we would like to
Mm.
see, but we don't plan.
More of like a priority, a list of
Yeah,
priorities, but not
priorities,
a strict schedule.
strict schedule. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, so just kind of go looking for the opportunities because you never know what something might lead you down a different path than you thought it was going to lead, and it might turn out to be the best thing.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of things I've experienced that are not necessarily things I would have, done or
Yeah,
pursued on my own. But the opportunity came and I was open to it.
yeah.
So, is there anything else you wanted to share that you didn't get a chance to, or that I didn't ask you about?
No, I think we talked about a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff.
So, what are you up to? How can people connect to you? How do they find out about you?
Yeah, so right now I'm doing my 100 lunches and doing a lot of article work right now since I had some extra free times during this downtime.
Yeah.
But things are starting to pick back up, so I'll have to figure out a schedule. So be on the lookout for that. So if they want to read any of my stuff or just connect with me, they can find me on my website, laurenheiseyconsulting.com.
Okay.
Or they can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram under Lauren Heisey Consulting on Instagram, and then just Lauren Heisey on LinkedIn.
Okay. So LinkedIn, Instagram, and then you've got a website. And then if someone wants to work with you, what's your recommendation?
If they want to work with me, just contact me, and we'll set up an hour to talk and do a discovery call and see how things go.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much for sharing your life with us, Lauren.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Jason.
All right. See you.